For a bit of background, MCD's water quality and citizen science efforts at the district began to be developed in about 2016 with both lake and stream MiCorps programming that a previous employee had initiated. And then in 2018, I took all of it over as an intern for about a year and learned the leadership side of things. And then went on to start my own watershed-themed after-school program with a fellow student at the time. It turns out there was a huge niche to fill and we were very successful. We had programming in 2 of the local schools over in Traverse City. And that was until the pandemic hit and I was out of a job. Because there really was no room for any more virtual learning at that point in time. So I found myself back at the district in 2021 and stepped into the lead role on these programs once again. So you'll see a lot of the K-12 education influence shine through in a lot of what I've built to pair with our MiCorps programming. But at our foundation, we have 9 VSMP sample stream sites and usually have 1 to 2 CLMP lakes per season that are funded through a partnership with the Forest Service. So as I mentioned, we have our foundational MiCorps programming, and then over the last 2 years, we have used that foundation to connect all of our educational outreach programming to be built upon. This includes K-12, community outreach, partner outreach, all of it. So in 2021, we started offering what we call macroinvertebrate workshops within our local K-12 classrooms. And I wrote the curriculum for these to focus on being sort of a replacement for field trips that schools may not have the funding for or coordination for. So essentially, they bring the watershed into the classroom. I sample a local stream the night before, I throw an air stone into the bucket to keep our macros alive overnight, and then I take them into the classroom the next day. As soon as the workshop is over, I put the macros back into their bucket with their air stone and they go right back into the stream that they came from. I have framed the structure of these workshops to mimic what we do on Volunteer Stream Sampling Day, and we pretend that each sample tray is its own stream. Students are given a fun and colorful presentation beforehand and then participate in a simplified process of identifying, sorting, and rating their pretend streams. This does 3 major things. It gives our water quality efforts exposure, it gives students something that they can personally look forward to being involved in as they get older, which is citizen science, and it is based on real-life methods within conservation. And they get so excited to hear that, and framing it this way to them always generates so many questions, especially when I take our macroinvertebrate workshops into the high schools. All of my curriculums correspond to the state standards for their grade, and the presentations, lesson plans, and printable materials that they would need are all available online for free for anyone to use. So on top of K-12 in-classroom outreach, I also use MiCorps methods as a foundation for all of my other outreach as well. And as you can tell, I'm really serious about my events corresponding and connecting as different versions of the same thing. And to just be honest, I still get nervous before presentations and events, but this really helps me be able to build on what I've experienced as both a citizen and a leader in these citizen science programs. So this all just built on what I'm familiar with. Here I am on the top left this past summer presenting to FAP foresters from around Michigan on the topic of forest and stream relationships. And check, I used this version of my macro workshop. And over on the right is one of my clean, drain, dry tables I host at community festivals during the summer. And of course, check, I offer macro exploration as an example of foundational stream species threatened by the spread of AIS. And this was just a fun example. We built a cornhole game to play at our boat wash events that sends the message to dump your bait where it belongs. And down here, a few other examples at the bottom where I tied in our MiCorps methodology. As far as presenting our actual MiCorps data to the public, we write a bright and colorful yearly report for our streams and a report for each one of our lakes as well. And we have the usual methods for sharing those. We post them on our website, our social media, send them to our partners, etc. And of course, we send them to our local newspaper, which brings me to my next slide. And as you've seen in some of the slides, we have had quite a few newspaper articles written about our efforts in the last few years. One article was actually shared on a national level, which was really exciting. But switching over to CLMP, this article was written this past September about one of the larger lakes in our area and how I assisted them in getting started on CLMP volunteer programming. That could be a whole presentation in and of itself, but as far as exposure or visibility, I was really given a large platform to express the major benefits of citizen science science and how it helps foster stewardship within the areas that the readers call home. And I'll briefly explain my method of getting your local journalists to notice the great things that you're doing in your area. So first of all I did was go to our local paper's website and head over to the profile section, and there you'll find all of the email addresses and contacts. Each time I had something to share, I'd go down the list, and eventually you'll get a feel of who is responsive and who isn't, what their style is, and all of that. And then after that, I had my core group of 2 to 3 contacts that I knew wrote really great stories and who kind of welcomed the leads. And so most important thing that got results though was just making it easy for them. I'd send all of the pictures that they would need with captions. I'd write down the who, what, and why, and I would use language that I knew would be quotable, essentially highlighting the human interest aspects of the story, partnerships forming, and any angle that I would imagine being the most interesting to a reader. Making it easy on the writer has been the #1 thing that has gotten the stories published. Also, have great pictures to send them. That really helps seal the deal as well. No matter what you're doing, big or small, take pictures. I take so many pictures when I'm out and about, and it always comes in handy when I'm creating content, big or small, or sharing information, or trying to get a story out there. So trust me, it's worth it. And also make sure you're editing your pictures before you use them. Just like we eat with our eyes and presentation is so important when it comes to the restaurant industry and food presentation, that same philosophy is true when with any kind of marketing. So if you're marketing your success through pictures, just make sure that you're doing things like turning your saturation up just a little bit on your photos to make those colors pop, cropping them to a symmetrical ratio, making sure that the angle is straight, and don't be shy to ask for big smiles and poses. These things are very effective subconsciously to the viewer. Also, when you're sharing and creating your content, it's very effective to utilize imaging from your area and the places your viewers call home. When training your volunteers or sending out materials to recruit volunteers, make your content as familiar to them as possible. For example, this year I created a training video for our stream volunteers, and I used actual pictures and footage of our volunteers and the places they'll be visiting. And I described the program from a Manistee perspective, and our volunteer turnout was higher this year than it's ever been. So personalize the program and apply it to your own community. When creating your own MiCorps content, there are plenty of free programs available. All of these do have pro versions, but these first 2 programs up here especially are so useful when sharing your data in unique ways or promoting your successes in hopes that those viewing it will join you. So everyone wants to have fun, right? So while you're out having fun and doing all of the cool things that you're doing, it is so effective to be presenting these moments in ways where you can get the most out of your platform. So going back to this quote from the newspaper, we can share data with the public endlessly, but stewardship potential can increase if the public is offered an opportunity to have a personal connection with the data. And these are a few ways to achieve that.